So today I'm going to be filling in the voids that were created by our transom extension. If you notice, it didn't look like it fit the boat because it didn't really fit the boat. If we followed the lines of the boat aft as far as we wanted to go, it'd come to like a little tiny point in the back. And the problem is Windpuff, which is the name of this boat, is a very long name and would not fit in about 3 inches, which is what we would actually have had we carried the lines aft like we were originally planning. So we made it wide enough to fit the word Windpuff in the Coast Guard regulation size for the letters. So it'll say Windpuff in the back and then come forward. But there was a void that was created, and the decision was made to build it small, build it with like a pinched look, stick it on the boat, and then fare it in. So that's what we're doing. We're faring it in.
We've got big plans for the small boat. We're learning as we go. So come along, we'll teach you stuff as we go building Windpuff.
So when we put on the bulwarks to blend in the bulwark part to the end of the transom, we just made it go straight. And that created a huge kind of void in the hull. So what I did was I just put panels on here and then stuck more fiberglass to it to come down. So that's going to be the continuation of the shear, or for the top sides. Now the problem is, under here, you have a big void. A really big void. So we need to fill that void in. So we're gonna go from the edge of this to the bottom edge of that, and we're gonna cover it in. And those huge holes are where I cut out a section. That way, where it's biggest, we don't really have that much resin going in because it adds a lot of weight. I believe it's about 67, maybe 70 pounds per cubic foot. So the more of it we have back here, the less weight we can carry in water. So we're gonna fill it all in, and then we're going to putty it and make it pretty much watertight. Okay, once it's watertight, it'll also be resin tight, and then we can pour in thickened resin. Not too thick because it still needs to pour in, but we can pour it down there and pretty much fill in that void with solid fiberglass. It's gonna be insanely thick, which is why we cut those areas out to help lighten the load a little bit, because that's a lot of glass back here. So here's some of my thoughts. 1, take a piece of fiberglass, one of the old ones that's nice and stiff, and literally just stick it on here like a bridge, and that'll fill it in, kind of give it a general shape to the area. Another idea is to take a dry piece of cloth and glue it on up here, leaving the bottom hanging, and then kind of tab it on, or glue it at the bottom, but leave the middle of it dry. That's what I did for this section. Like when I made this, I'd kind of glue some up here, glue some down here, and then left it. When I had a bunch of cloth all kind of supporting itself, then I went and brushed it and got it all nice and wet, and then and it worked. And then over that, I then laid more layers of cloth. So that was one way of doing it. The issue is being upside down, I'm worried about it sagging. So I'm thinking maybe I put some cloth, and then every so often put a solid piece to kind of like help guide it in its way. Now, the better I get this, the less fairing and sanding I have to do later. So I'm very motivated in making this as smooth and not bulgy. If anything, I'd rather have undercuts, because undercuts I can just fill in, and then they're easier to fill, or they're easier to fair, because you fill it and then you sand it and it comes out nice. If you got a piece protruding, you have to grind that down, and then it's work. It's work either way. That's a thought. Let's just start trying stuff, see what works. I'm gonna try just laying the cloth across and see what that gets us. See if this piece is long enough. Just. All right, so if I come across like that, all right, that might work. So let me get this part wetted on, whatever the words would be. Okay, so this isn't working great, but it is working. So we have glued on here lightly, glued on here, dry. The reason I can't wet this is because when it gets wet, it gets heavier and then it'll fall off. So we're just gonna put this here and then let it cure. Then we'll come back and we can paint it and wet the middle section. All right, so we're gonna lay up a whole bunch of this and we're going to hope that it stays on there. Stay up. No, it's all falling. Okay. All right, that's not gonna work. Plan next. Let's figure something else out. Next idea. I'm going to, it's creative. I'm gonna take some of these, the plastic, the PVC boards. I'm gonna take some thin ones and I'm gonna screw them to the outside. And then I'm gonna like feed the cloth through that, kind of like a loom, and hold it in place, and then we can glue it up, or fiber resin it. Put the fiberglass resin on there and see if that lets it work. Also, a little update on the bronze chain plates. Here they are. They're not green, they're just dark, just hanging out and holding on there. And because it's so cold, our rigging is quite slack. So that's how it goes. When it gets really cold, the Dyneema actually expands a lot and the aluminum contracts a lot. And the end result is a very, very loose rig. So that's part of why, my God, my nose is running, it's so cold out. So that's part of why on Windpuff we're going to be switching to a keel step rig, because we're going to do synthetic, and I think synthetic works better with the keel step. It takes out a lot of stress and a lot of headaches and a lot of worry about, you know, what's the temperature going to do and will my mast lean over so far that it falls off? Because if you're deck stepped, you are 100% reliant on the rigging to hold your mast up. If you're keel stepped and it gets cold, don't put your sails up. But the mast isn't going to fall over. It's not going anywhere. So that's that. But the bronze chain plates they're looking good. I like the nice patina they got. They look quite shippy. If you're going for shiny mirror finish forever, don't do bronze. Stick to stainless steel and just replace them often because you're gonna have to. It's the price you pay for beauty. Dyneema to the rescue. So, I tied up these little lines that go under the hull and hold these pieces of plastic in place. And more importantly, act as the general flow that we want it to have. So, the ropes are being held, the pieces of plastic are being held in place by those ropes. And then we're just gonna lay the fiberglass inside of it, all dry. And then when the fiberglass is all in place, then we'll start wetting it. And hopefully it'll cure to the boat, hopefully. Okay, so it's holding it. But if you look, it's got a nice big bow to it. Like a really big one, too much. So I'm gonna have to grind all that off afterwards. So an idea, because it seems to be our last hope right now. Put it on. Like lay up the whole thing in glass. Build it all up. And then take screws and screw them on the outside. Now the outside's tight. Then pull the inside ones and put a little screw in, just like a little tack, just to hold it into the piece of plastic. And then it's tight. And then maybe some glass. Maybe, we'll see, something. But that's where we are right now. A lot of hoping, still a lot of hoping. Last ditch effort. So I'm gonna take a solid piece of cloth, because I was thinking if I do the little strips, like it could pull weird, it could do strange things. So to avoid that, my thought was, hey, what if I have one big continuous sheet of cloth? Which I do. I got a whole roll of the stuff. So I'm gonna cut that and then wedge it in there and then put the little screws to hold it in place and see if we can get that to shape. Okay, change of plans again. So, it's so cold. It is so cold. I couldn't even get the GoPro to stay on because the battery was shutting down to protect itself because it's that cold outside. So, the thought that, hey, if I put some resin on there, it'll set is just stupid. So I'm not gonna do that. Now, I will say, stretching the cloth in that little form seemed to work. It looked like a good idea. We'll see if it's still a good idea later. But it seems to be on the right track. So that's a good thing. Now the problem is, there's no way I could keep it tight once the resin loosens the fibers up. So that means that it needs to already be stiff and in its shape when we put it in there. Best way to do that is to come back into Windpuff's tent where it's warm, because I have a heater going, because it's incredibly cloudy and there is no sun, and set it up. Wet it, get it curing, and then hope that it cures. If it does, sweet. We'll then make the other one because it's too cold to go outside. Now, being how I've been here for hours, like I got here at 8 and it's now noon. Yeah, it's been 4 hours. I've gotten nothing done at all. It's incredibly frustrating. So what I'm going to do now to get something accomplished today is I'm going to do the starboard bulwark. Same thing we did on the port side. We're going to clean it all out. We're going to get it filled with putty, and then we're going to put 10 layers of cloth on it again to seal up the whole thing and make it super bomb proof. So now both port and starboard side are glassed up with 10 layers of 1708. It's on there nice and snug, and then with the roller we got all the bubbles out. Like, it's a nice, firm, dense, full set. So that's going to then cure all as one piece, and it's going to form a primary chemical bond between all the layers. So then it's a much stronger setup. When you go doing multiple layers, it's easier because you have the ability to work in stages. But then the bond from one layer to the other between the different sets, that's a secondary mechanical bond. With the laminating resin, it stays a little tacky, so it works out better than if you did finishing resin or something like that. But it's still not as strong as it could be. So being how this is a really strong, or an angle that needs to be very strong on its own, make it really strong. So we just laid it all up in one solid go. Now, the reason you can't do everything as just one solid go, like, for example, cast the whole boat in one piece, is it'll get so hot when it's curing that it can warp. So it's a fine line between how much do you get done in one go and having everything end in disaster. So being how this is, it's a 1/2 inch thick, and it runs 30 feet. And the outside is winter, the inside is warm. So the sun's going to go warming it up, so it never gets really hot. So it's just a nice, slow, steady cure, and it works. If I was doing this in the summer, and this stuff would be kicking like that, and I wouldn't be able to build this huge thing in one go. Like, it would be cured before I got back to it to put the next layer on. And you can do things like adjust the amount of catalyst that you put in to make it cure faster or slower, and I actually put a lot of catalyst in to speed up the process because it's cold. So I was doing about 2% catalyst instead of 1% that I normally do. So that's double the amount. Now, will it cure? Yes. It's just going to take a lot longer, even with the heater running.
Thanks for watching this episode of Sailing Wisdom. Don't forget to like the video, share it with your friends, and hit subscribe so you don't miss the next Rigging Doctor episode. And if you're interested in even more Rigging Doctor awesomeness, consider becoming a patron to see all of our extras. Can't wait to see you next time as you join us out here on the high seas.